Today we're gonna make a video.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
Doing so good.
So you're based on the West Coast,
Yeah,
right?
I'm in Spokane, so I'm on the east side of Washington. I wasn't actually born here though. I was born and raised in Austin, and I didn't move up here until like COVID hit. So this is like a
Interesting.
new Pacific Northwest baby. Like I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm learning the lingo and I'm learning the style and changing everything about myself.
Well, your aesthetic is giving PNW, so don't worry.
Yeah, it's the plants and the piano thing, right? That's the
Uh-huh.
thing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when did you move to Spokane then? When was
Uh,
that?
yeah, so mid 2020. It was late 2019, right before like obviously the world shut down. I lost my job. I lost my partner at the time. I was
Oh,
just kind of
man.
like I had nothing going for me, and so
Yeah.
I ended up moving back in with my parents. I didn't go to college, but I was just kind of like couch surfing with whatever friend had a free room in their apartment. And I was like, I gotta make music. I had nothing else going on, so I was like, I'm gonna make myself an EP. And I made like three records and they did really well for like no advertising. And I was like, oh, sick. Thanks. Like royalties are a thing. And I was like, okay. So I
Yeah.
started making money on my own. And my sister had gone to a school in Spokane and she was like,
Hmm.
hey, I have a basement. The world's ending. You can just figure it out here. And so I jumped up in April 2020 and I've never looked back. So yeah.
Wow. And now you're more settled. You have your space set up, ready to go for work.
Very much so. Yeah, yeah. No, I built here so quickly because it was just obviously the atmosphere that I was going to thrive in. Like I had the opportunity before I met my partner to go down to LA,
Mm.
to kind of just live as like a basement rat with my good friend now Garrett Nash, and I knew immediately that my music would suffer if I was in that environment because it just wasn't what I
Mm.
was making and it wasn't what I wanted to make at that point.
Right.
And then so I was able to make my second EP here. And I think it only thrived because of it, where I could have my own space and like I'm a fly away if I need to
Yeah.
go see people. So
No,
yeah,
that
no,
makes
it's perfect.
sense. The way that your environment like informs your creativity and your flow is so underrated. I had the opposite experience where I was living in Seattle and I love Seattle, but coming here and getting sunshine every day, my creativity flourished. It sounds like you're like an indoor plant and I'm an outdoor plant, and we needed to figure that out.
I love that so much. Oh my God, I'm
You
gonna
know what
write
I
that
mean?
down. Yeah, it is important. People gave me a lot of crap for moving to Spokane from Austin to do music. They're like, "Do you realize what Austin is?" And
Yeah.
it just wasn't my community. Like I was born and raised on like contemporary Christian worship. Like I was a worship pastor
Yeah.
before everything happened.
Oh, really?
Um,
Wow.
yeah, and then so losing that job, being asked to step down, and then like realizing that like, oh wow, I don't really like country music. Like I just like
Yeah.
it's just not for me. It wasn't the atmosphere I wanted to build my brand in. And
Right.
ultimately I wanted to be a producer, but I didn't have anyone else to produce for because no one wanted to
Yeah.
make the music that I wanted to make. And so I was like, I
Right.
guess I am an artist project now. And so I
Because you
just
sing in your work
yeah,
too.
everything is me. Everything is me.
Right. Yeah. So but you're saying that your initial like place of launching was coming from a producing standpoint because you just said that you couldn't find anybody to like sing it or like top line for your stuff. Because I mean, you have a great voice. I'm surprised to hear that that wasn't something that you weren't implementing right away.
I think it's a combination. Thank you for that, by the way. I think it's a combination of like whereas I had the background in a Christian ministry and like always leading people in worship and
Mm.
leading people in music and songs, I just didn't want to sing. I was just kind of tired of that because that was my job.
You were
And I
front
wanted,
front manning everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like I had higher ups, I had people that I worked with, and I was more of an orchestrator, but at the same time, it was still like it was a job.
Right.
And so I wanted to just disappear and just create music and write. And I didn't have anyone like at that time that I really respected musically to write for. And so I was
Right.
stuck in a bubble of like, I don't want to just not make anything. And I did that for years, like all of high school into like out of high school, even like right before COVID, I was writing all these demos and records every single day and had like hundreds of them that I was just never doing anything with because I was just too afraid to sing in them. And so once I was like, I have no one else to write for, I'm just gonna write my story. And I started writing it, and people latched on so much quicker to the words than the music. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so like I need to trust myself with the art that I'm creating. Like my dream world
Right.
is to write an album and then just disappear for like 3 years, and you'll never hear from me, not even social media. Like I hate it. I don't like it. But then yeah, then just drop on you some thought-provoking wave of my life and then disappear again. Like that's my dream. Like ultimately, I see myself going the production route, but I have to make my application, make my reservoir for people to sift through.
Yeah.
And that's just gonna have to be me singing initially. So
There's like two questions I have from that, which is one, what was that moment that that you, because I think there's a lot of people, especially like artists that I talk to, that they're either in the camp of they have all this work that they are feeling precious about, but nobody else has ever heard it, but they are like, I'm so prolific, like I have all this stuff, like it's just so great, I'm so excited about it. But there's this moment that needs to happen where you need to be okay with being perceived, and having other people hear your inner thoughts and feelings and art, which is extremely like vulnerable. And then there's like the other side, which is there's the grind that happens after that. Where did that happen for you? Because you said that you had all this stuff, and then once you did that, that was like really a great moment for you, and you were able to move your life and career forward. But what was there, like a thing that you can pinpoint, or was it just like got to a point where you were like, I need to just do something with this?
yeah, I think that's a great question. It's hard to pinpoint exactly. I knew like what wave of my life it was at. Knowing what the trigger was a little harder. I think it was when I had a big run up with like my faith and what faith is, when I got fired from that job, and that was like it was very gradual. Like he's leaving, but it was obviously like not what I wanted, and that kind of shook my entire worldview because I realized how wrong I really was, and that frustration, I had no other outlet because I had lost all of my friends in that too. And so I didn't know how to say it, and so I was like, who am I speaking to?
Right.
And I think that trigger was one of the big moments where I needed to say something that was like so real to me, and it called a lot of hurt and like even just generational trauma that a lot of my peers had at the time that they didn't realize it was happening until I said it. I'm not saying I'm like the leader of this movement, but
I hear what you're saying though. It was a really profound moment for you that resonated with other people, especially people that were in your community or have been in similar communities.
It was that moment was like you get home and you sit down and all you have is your keyboard and your laptop, and I was like, this is all I know is music, and like every day of my life for the last 4 years has been just like getting a set list together, doing this, like writing some movements on the side, and you're coming home and like I can write about something that's not someone else's life, someone else's intentions. I can just like write about myself. I think that was the trigger point for me when I was like, I need to sing. I need to sing, not some words that someone had given me.
Right.
And that was hard. It was hard for me initially because I didn't want to be mad at people, but that's where all of it came from, was from anger. And so that was my best way to dispel it, was to then just say it in a medium that was healthy and contained. So I wouldn't lash out or hold it or have grievances for people that didn't even know that they had wronged me. So
I'm glad that you figured out what was the right thing for you. That's really awesome. That's so great.
I appreciate that. It really just took me leaving it. Like it was a moment of like, I can't fix this. Like I wrote a whole song about it. It's called Was I Wrong? And the whole point of it is like, it's not my job.
Wow. Well, there was like another tangent that I wanted to pull on from you, that earlier you had said that, you, in your ideal dream world, you're writing and then disappearing, and your maybe relationship with social media is not easy flowing. And so my question to you is like, how are you managing and creating a career and building, because you have created a name for yourself and you've created relationships and you're building things, I know, but I'm interested to know what your thoughts are on your journey in that.
I think things are harder in the way of getting traction on anything that's important to you. That's been very disconcerting because you post this, again, it's always the TikToks that you'll make in 30 seconds that'll get 1 million views, and then the ones that you spent the last 2 days working on will get like 100. And it's like you know that is a system, you know that is the base that you build this whole thing on, but it still hurts when it happens. And so a big challenge for me was I was telling again my friend Garrett, who basically discovered me. He's a big fan of mine, a big friend now too, and he was like, he goes, we need to get you posting regularly because we want people to know who you are. And I wasn't losing followers by being a very exclusive, just like every other month you'd hear from me, but I wanted to expand. I wanted people to know so then I can be in the position to disappear. And so
I like that.
yeah, no, legit. And so we had brainstormed on some social media ideas and things, and he calls me and he's like, hey, I have it right here actually. He goes, hey, we have this, I found this thing called a plant wave. And all it is, it's just super simple. It just reads electronic frequencies from just houseplants, any plants at all. And then it sends them to your phone as like MIDI inputs or just like audio and triggers and things.
Right.
And so he was like, this is on brand. Like I just, the houseplants thing I kind of stuck with for forever because like that was the one thing that I could like take care of in my life. Everything else was changing, but I could still keep my plants alive.
I like that.
No, I built the whole thing on.
It's harder than it seems.
No, it's not easy. It's being a plant papa has been more aggravating than it has been rewarding, but it's still so much fun. But like even in my first EP, like I got some studio time with just through a friend, and all I did was I brought my houseplants and I just sat in them and was like, this is just like all that I was at that moment. And so that's been such a brand thing. But he's like, what if you made a song every single day or just a quick little thing using the sounds that you get from your houseplants?
Yeah.
And so I was like, let's do it. Let's knock it out of the park. And that has been one of the most healthy and frustrating and exciting exercises I've done in my entire life. Because it's like, I am on day, I think 55 will be today when I'll post it later. And I go to run houseplant, I'll get a sound. I'll like, okay, cool, that's my key. I realize, oh my God, that's D half sharp. I need to tune that. And it's just like, it's such a challenge. I've like relearned the wheel, and it's kept me on par with this like the expectations that I've always had of myself.
Right.
And that's been really, really cool for me. Obviously, like the views aren't there, but like I'm having this massive, like, I don't know, plethora of music. Like technically you could say these are literally 55 demos that I've made over the last month and a half.
They're all plant demos. I love that.
No, legit. And it's been such a cool opportunity. I've just connected with so many cool people that just like are really nobody, but they don't realize that their stuff is already great. And so I now have like 50 different people that have each song has like hit them in different ways. And I do a questionnaire every day. And I'm like, hey, like, what are you feeling about this? What's this? Like you have 5 words to say before you die. What are they? And then I'll use those prompts as the lyric basis.
Oh, I like that.
Song. So it's just like people don't realize that they're writing a song on accident. And so that's been the way that I've been able to navigate is by keeping that daily consistency. I decided after like oh gosh, I think it was like 46 days. I was like, it was during the Super Bowl, and I did not have time. I couldn't make the song today because I just had so many errands to run. Yeah. And so I was like, I'm gonna take Sundays off. Like I need.
Okay, yeah. You craft it to a schedule that makes sense for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I was like, oh man, I want to do a whole year in a row, but I realized like realistically, that's just gonna make my music worse. Like if I'll finish the song and then it'll be like lunchtime, and so I'll schedule the post for the evening because when everyone's home, and in those like 6 hours, I don't want to make music because I already made a song for the day.
You're feeling like you know, it's striking a balance between creating structure and consistency for yourself, but without letting yourself burn out.
Exactly.
And that's the hard thing because it will fluctuate. You know. Yeah. Like some weeks you have like a lot of energy and others you don't, and like letting the slack loose a little bit, like Sundays to yourself, like not only does that just make a lot of sense, like 6 out of 7 days is also a lot.
It's a lot.
It's not like you're like like really letting that loose, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, and it's just I hope that answers your question, but like that's been my reason. It's become what was initially like, hey, I made a song, check this out. It's more like a daily vlog almost, which I never thought I would even get into, but it's just like yesterday I was like, hey, my weekend was great, thanks for asking, here's whatever thing I came up with, and I just happened to get some guy that had like 14 views playing a really dope, just really good just guitar riff, and I was like, sick, download, use that as the basis, and it just happened to be in the same key of the hum that I got from the plant that day. So I was like, sick, throw that in, DM the guy like, hey, I'm gonna use this is so sick, post it, and then that's my daily driver. And it's just been such a good exercise, and I really appreciate it, but I'm like using it to get traction for like what's actually happening under the surface, of course. But
something that I've noticed is that for a lot of people that are trying to do this the way that you are, which is you're trying to remain consistent and keep it feasible, you know, like you're really trying to like not just do this like brute force thing, but you're also creating this longevity. Like you're outsourcing in ways that are letting you still have your creative muscle like trained, and you're still creating content, but it's in a way that's, I think, incredibly healthy, right? Like sharing these kinds of tools and processes is like, I think, invaluable for artists that are just starting and artists that are trying to figure out how to make sense of this very like confusing and convoluted career path. I'm wondering, what are like important nuggets when you were first starting out in your career?
There's one thing I would tell myself: just post it. Just post it. Just finish it.
Yeah.
Just post it. Like that's even one of the lines in one of the songs is like, maybe one day I'll actually like my own damn songs. Like that's the joke. That was my intro. And that was the starting point of like, I wanted you to know who I was. Like, I am the only person in the world at that time that I felt like that didn't like what I was making, because everyone that heard it, like, there's no way that everyone is lying to you. There's no way. And that was one thing that I wish I would have done sooner. But yeah, it's the shouting into the void. Like I've felt that, but I've never felt the weight of it. And by that I mean, like, I knew that I wasn't speaking to everyone, because I knew people just weren't involved yet. And when they would be involved, then they would hear it. And so the void was just like more of a bucket of like, people can still contain it.
I like that.
Yeah. It allowed me to ground it a little better, where it felt like I wasn't speaking to no one. It was just like I wasn't speaking to anyone yet, and I already said it.
Yeah.
And it was recorded.
And it was there for them to see when they arrived.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was an after the fact. Once I was heard by the people that I really respected, then I felt that way about it. Like, there was moments of it felt like it was a void. But for my first EP, which again is just me in my bedroom, COVID, like begging for a job anywhere.
Right.
I posted it, and I didn't write music like for like a year. I just let it sit. Like, I had a couple ideas here and there, a couple demos, but I didn't like just sit down and like, I'm gonna make another EP. I just let it sit for a year, and it was almost, I think it was like a year and a half later, I get a DM from Garrett, and it was which I don't know, you might know him as Nash, but he just like, hey, I love your stuff, I want to write. And it was everything that he sent me that he loved, that he wanted to expand on, was all things from that EP that I had made. And that was a moment of realization that like someone picked it up. Like, it was like, I literally had to wait a year of silence. I think in total it had like 50,000 plays, which is crazy for someone who never advertised. But then it just sat, and like it just needed its time to exist. Yeah. And so that's why the shouting to the void never really felt real for me, because I finally got an echo after a year.
That's really beautiful, and I think that's a good frame shift for people that are feeling discouraged, right, by that, which, I mean, I think is very relatable. But I like that. The bucket is a really great analogy. So then you started writing for Garrett, or with Garrett?
Well, yeah, it was. We've had a couple ideas here and there. If anything, he really just kind of built me up to have the opportunity. I was able to get signed to him and his partner, Roosevelt Eels, who are like the owners of Overall Recordings and also Overall Management. So they just have like a couple producers that they just have networked, and they're trying to spark this like up and coming nobodies, and just kind of get some traction going. So it's me, Daniel Legs, and oh gosh, Maddie something, I forgot her last name. I'll give it to you as soon as I can. But she, Roosevelt, she just was like, hey, let's just literally just throw money at these people and just like see what they do with it. And so that's when I was able to make my second EP. Was I had all these demos with like, hey, what if you finished them? What if you finished them? What if you built them up? What if we mastered them for you? What if this? And it was really one of those calls of, it was like, hey, quit your waiting job, like move, do, like this is it, like this is your instigator. Yeah. And that's been literally the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And like, it was so obvious that I needed to just let it exist, because it got like, which I obviously don't like the first EP. Who likes their first EP?
Sure. It's a rite of passage.
Yeah, right, yeah. But somebody did enough to say like, Cadence Floria as a project should exist more and should carry on. And so that's what this whole this whole year. So it's been since
Wow.
March of 2021 is when it started.
Yeah, I think we were that's when we first were chatting, actually. I remember that because I remember you were like, I think I might be having some things change for me, so I will let you know how things go. But I remember that, yeah, which is great, and that's awesome to hear that got followed through with, and you are doing things right now. That's so exciting. Oh my gosh.
I totally forgot that we had that message. That's so funny.
It was really far away, and then we didn't talk for months, and then somehow I think we just got back. The echo came back.
Yeah. No, I've been following your stuff like for forever, and that was like before I was like even in conversation. So I was like,
I remember that. Yeah.
I was so afraid to send you stuff because I didn't like it. but like now I've made.
No, I really loved your stuff. I mean, I think that you're right, that you're the only person that was critical in that way. I mean, the stuff that you sent me, even though that was a while ago, I mean, it's great. It's really great.
I super appreciate that. Yeah. And I know that in hindsight, it comes around, and you know that like you made something good, you just don't like it.